Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Makers Bar podcast. I'm your host for today, Suhavi. And today we have with us the co founder of BHyve, Ketaki. Hi, Ketaki. How are you doing?
Hey Suhavi, I'm very good. How are you?
I'm also good. Thank you for asking. So, let's get straight to business, Ketaki. So, tell us about BHyve. What does it do?
Yeah. So BHyve is a startup me and my friends started three and a half years ago, officially. We are an AI powered digital brain for every organization. We were working as knowledge professionals and we realized how much time employees lose just trying to find the right information within the organization. It could be through documents, it could be people knowledge, insights, somebody who's done an experiment in the past and has some learnings. And so the way we've built BHyve is to create a brain where the company's entire knowledge base, wisdom, insights can come together. So if I, as an employee, need help, the only thing I have to do is get into BHyve and run a quick search. BHyve will connect me to the right process knowledge, people knowledge within seconds. Our goal is to help employees save almost 30 minutes of mindful work time that they lose simply because they're not able to find the right knowledge.
That's really cool. So, as you said, you and your friends were into knowledge management as professionals. So, what did you and your friends, other co-founders, do before that made you lead to this?
Yeah, yeah. So we were knowledge professionals. I started my career in India in the entertainment sector, and I used to work at Yashraj Films. We were, a small 400 people set up with multiple teams trying to do multiple things around the kind of films we produced. Then I moved to the US, got my MBA, worked for a large multinational company in the entertainment space, Viacom. And so similarly, my co-founders, they're my childhood friends. We were all working in these kinds of large organizations. And that is where I think the pandemic really made us realize how much we rely on people for help and troubleshooting and knowledge as opposed to the 30 different softwares that the company already provides. And so the difficulty of not being able to find information quickly, which got aggravated when everybody was trying to do work from home, compelled us to think of how could we solve this, firstly for ourselves, but then also of course large, for all organizations. We studied how our friends at large companies like Google, Amazon, or other places had something, a system in place which would help them get critical information quickly. And we said, well, if they have it, why don't everybody else? And so that's why we started sketching BHyve.
So, as I understand, you use the case studies of large organizations to understand how to make your platform work. Um, but won't you think it'll be difficult to adapt to smaller organizations with like 40 people, 50 people setup? Because it's difficult then as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was, I think, one of the earliest learnings we had when we started, that every company at all stages has a knowledge management problem, right? Whether you are 20 people, 30 people company just setting up early stages, even startups like ourselves, up to like really large multinational companies, there is an inherent human challenge, which is the diligence of writing things down and sharing and so on. And so, yes, the way to solve it might be different for different sized organizations, but the challenge is common for all. When building BHyve, we focused, of course, on a certain target segment that we want to track. So we don't go as small as 40 or 50 people organizations, simply because, in terms of the unit economics, it doesn't work out for us the way the product is built. Maybe at a future stage we will have versions of BHyve, some which are for really small 10 to 30, 50 people setups, and then some as go as high as 10,000 and 15,000 employees.
Okay. So, as you said, it's been more than 3.5 years of working and building BHyve. So, can you tell me what is your role in the company and what are your co-founders' roles?
Sure. Yeah. So we started BHyve as three friends. I mean, as a founder, you basically are everybody from the CEO to the intern. So when we started it, we were just three friends. We used to do everything ourselves, right? The first set of marketing went out from us. We used to go and meet customers. I remember I did my first pitch for BHyve in 2019. And in fact, Swavi, to a really large law firm. Essentially, the role can be anything. Today, I handle all of the business end. So I handle sales, marketing, customer success, fundraising. I have a tech co-founder who builds the entire technology. He and his team, they write the algorithms, they run the tests on the product, so on and so forth. We also have a third co-founder who has stepped away for personal reasons. He continues to be a mentor, champion, soundboard for us anytime we need to bounce some new ideas around. So that's largely the structure of our work.
Okay, that's interesting. And I think it's, okay, tell me some, tell me if this is difficult for you. The fact that you and your friends who you've known for very long, started an organization. Did that pose as a problem, considering you also have social relations with them outside of work?
Um, I think there are pros and cons of this setup. Um, but to be honest, if you're taking on a really difficult journey, which is building a startup, you want to be doing it with people you have known and you
Mm,
trust.
yeah,
One of the key things that we try to do is to have your role with each other as founders and your role with each other as friends, and how one role should not affect the other and one role should not take the other for granted. um, uh, when I speak to my mentors and advisors, I look for similar ones too. And so I think there is a very large positive to working with friends. There is a small negative, but there are ways to work through that, is what I believe.
that's very mature of you guys, and it's great that it's working for you guys as well. Speaking of trust, what are the key values that your company represents, and how do you ensure that they are upheld?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure you've heard this from other folks, but values of a company flow through the founders. And so Vihang and I personally, our values are, one is transparency. So we have to be honest with ourselves, with our investors, with our employees, team members, colleagues, partners, customers at all points of time. The second is learning. So when we hire, also we look for folks who will come aboard as people who are just eager to learn. The product value itself also is that we're building this for people who are constantly looking to learn and grow, and so having a team that believes in that is very critical. The third is community. So again, because BHyve is a knowledge product and we look at the community wisdom coming together, uh, people who come and work for us, work with us as our partners, need to be strong believers in the power of community. Vihang, my co-founder, gives this amazing example. He says, "Ke yaar, 4 saal I did engineering. The only reason I got through was because I had friends who were there for me to teach me the right things at the right time." And if that has been the foundation of how we've reached here, it is something we want to build in the team. And so, how people step up when the job demands that, oh, my checklist of my role is 5 tasks, but how well do I adapt and move quickly into a sixth or a seventh task that's been given to me, is something that we try to inculcate in the values of the company. um, I know customer obsession is like one of the most obvious things, because while everybody says it, it is true that you can't build a new innovative product without constantly thinking about customers. So that's another value that we believe in. And yeah, we're super proud of the work we do. So we believe in working hard and then partying and celebrating and then resetting and getting back to work.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, it is very important to have like a strong community and have trust and, foster innovation amongst them. So, I'm assuming your organization has a lot of people from different backgrounds and also different age groups. considering it's a startup, I'm assuming there are a lot of young people, but also there must be like people with, for like with a lot of experience as well. So, do you feel it's difficult, or it's how do you foster innovation in such a wide like variety of a group?
Yeah. Actually, variety itself drives innovation, right? Because people come in with such different experiences. People come in with having lived in different cultures and knowing different kinds of people and their thought process. So I think getting the right diverse team itself is a very strong input metric for driving innovation. The second to me is encouraging them to constantly take risks and backing them for those risks. Right. So when our team members go out, they'll come and they'll say, "Hey, Kitki, I want to try this thing out." I always tell them saying, "Do it 100%. Justify it to me 3 to 5 points. Have you thought about all the angles? And then go ahead and do it. So long that you keep me looped in, even if it goes south, I got your back." And so when you give them that sort of freedom as well as backing, they also feel, you know what, I'm going to try something new today. If they're going to be constantly sort of chastised for going outside of their role, then they will not, and then there will be no innovation. So the first is getting a diverse mix of people. The second is giving them that kind of freedom and trust and support. And the third is constantly asking each other questions. I'm inherently a very curious person, and so when I interact, I'm always full of follow-ups and questions. We try to bring that in our meetings, in our discussions around the product or the customer, or about what direction we're going to take as a company. And so when you get these questions, um, there is a part of leadership or a part of a builder which may say, "Why are you asking me? I know what I'm doing." But for us, we're saying that, "Hey, I'm asking you because I want to learn." And so the moment you sort of establish that as the sort of the underlying reason for people
Yeah.
asking each other questions, it breaks the barrier of people saying, "Okay, why am I being questioned?" And so through those questions, we're able to learn as well as check for each other's thought process. And I think that creates a great innovative, innovation focused working environment.
Yeah, and do you feel this is your leadership style as well? Like instead of questioning and asking, like judging people or whatever, you're like asking them questions to understand what they're doing, and then back them up with whatever knowledge and information that you have. Do you feel that is what is working for you?
Absolutely. I mean, whether it is a very small decision like our sales team saying, "Hey, we're going to call these many people today," to saying that, "Hey, this is a customer, this is a problem, here's how I think we can solve it," or choosing to go from one technology to another, we usually say, "Okay, why are we doing this? What is the challenge? What is the goal? And what is your logic behind this solution? What are some other solutions you have explored but are choosing to go with A instead of B or C?" Sound logic goes ahead. The best idea in the room wins. And so if you give that kind of a setup, people usually end up doing the right things. The other thing that I think truly defines the culture of BHyve, and I would say it defines the culture of a lot of successful companies, is that the moment you're not in a work environment, if you're not able to tell the hierarchy of the company, you've set up a really good team to work with each other. Because the moment they're not in a structured setup, if they can be friends, we say this even when we hire people, that we just want to be with working with people who we would love to hang out all the time with. And so if you get those people and you put them in an informal setting, maybe at a restaurant or a trip or a whatever, if you're not able to tell who's the senior and who's the junior, then you've really cracked their comfort to be honest and work together.
So hanging out with friends is, I think, the foundation that you've
100%.
built. That's great. That's great because a lot of like corporate setups are not like that. Even a lot
Yes.
of yeah, sorry to interrupt. Even a lot of startups, while they don't believe in the hierarchical structure, there is still hierarchy irrespective, right? A co-founder is a co-founder. A CEO is a CEO. You can't change that. But this is a very interesting outlook.
I think there's a duality to it. I don't think you can absolutely take away hierarchy. Any organization except the country, I guess, is not a democracy. There are going to be certain levels, and there are going to be certain, accesses that people have or don't have. The key is that 50% of your company's work style, 20% of your company's work style, because that will determine how much people are working with restrictions and structure versus how much they're working with freedom and comfort and the ability to take risks. So for us, we think that, of course, there are some places where I am the co-founder and CEO and you have to listen to me, but that's only maybe 20 to 30% times. The rest 70% times, especially when we're not doing work, we're just friends. You and I are um, equally entitled to our own, thoughts and ideas and ability to question each other. So there's a balance to it. I don't think you can be one way or the other. You got to find what middle ground works for everybody.
So again, I want to question again. I want to talk to you about your leadership style. So, do you feel that this is something you developed over the years, or do you feel that this is something you learned when you were living abroad, and like you picked up from there?
Yeah. Um, well, I think I was very lucky where through all my careers, I had extremely good managers and bosses. They were fun, they were uh, encouraging. I remember my VP at Yashraj, who I used to report into, he would say, Ketki, once a month, just take a day off and go and do something else. Don't do work. You will find, something different that will inspire you, bring in new thoughts and ideas. So there was a lot of freedom to um, try out new things. There was also guidance to say, hey, I think this is what's best for you. So he was sort of instrumental in pushing me to go and pursue an MBA and look for bigger roles and bigger working setups. So I think I've been lucky where I've had really good mentors and bosses and managers guiding me. So when I look today at a team that I am building, I want to make sure I pass it forward. I also know that there were places that I didn't have um, the right team and support and guidance, and I know how that affected my morale, how it affected my performance. So yes, part of it is the background, the history of your own work experience, and it's also some of it is aspirational, right? I say this in all my interviews, I say this to all my team members, saying I want that you become the best in the country, the best in the world in whatever you do. If you're a salesperson, you have to be the best salesperson. And I will be so proud to say that you were, born out of BHyve. And so to me, if they can accomplish that personal growth, that personal goal for themselves and become known as the best in the industry in whatever they do, right? It could be coding, it could be sales, it could be product, it could be design. And then they say that, hey, we started our journey or we built a significant part of our journey at BHyve, that will make me super proud. So I think that's sort of how I look at my leadership.
So, speaking of being the best version of oneself, what do you think is the best version of Beehive? Like, what is its long term vision? And secondly, what do you think is success for your business? Like, how would you define success for Beehive?
So long success for us is accomplishing whatever goals we set, right? Your goalpost keeps changing as you grow as an organization. When we started, the goal was just to get some customers. Today the goal is a certain revenue figure or a certain NPS score, or breaking into a new market. Could be anything. And so success literally is you set a goal and you accomplish it, and you align all your chickens in the right direction. Um, but the larger vision for BHyve is to become one of the first 10 tools that any organization in the world buys when they set up. So you could be, again, to your point, a small 10 or 20 people company buying softwares for the first time. You could be a traditional business getting into digital transformation and exploring softwares to improve your work outcomes. You could be a large multinational, having, different pieces being figured out. We want to be one of the first 10 softwares that any organization in the world buys.
That's very interesting because I can think of a couple of softwares that I know that a company or an organization buys. But
Yes,
tell me one thing. Since like there's so many companies, there's so many verticals, there are different industries, there
yes,
are different AI powered tools for like for those specific industries. For example, there must be something for the like steel industry, there must be something for like healthcare. I know there's something for legal, to do
yeah,
like AI related research and this and that. So
yeah.
how will BHyve cater to different verticals? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, and that is actually the biggest problem statement, right? Especially when you build a horizontal SaaS tool, and uh, to back to our conversation at the start, something that is a problem for every company at every stage of um, business. How do you build for, or how do you focus on who to build for? So for us, when we narrowed down BHyve, BHyve's focus in the last year over certain segments or sectors, it was a bunch of different decision-making frameworks, right? We first thought of where has been the initial success, which sectors we spoke with, even as early back in 2019 and 20, gave us the highest response, which are sectors which are sort of underserved or are in the need for digital transformation, would have the right set of knowledge internally for us, right? So one of the core reasons we chose manufacturing is because we have a legacy setup in manufacturing companies looking to transform, looking to modernize, and an underserved market. Nobody builds AI technology for manufacturing. There's a little bit of Industry 4.0 and digital twins and some of that coming in, just especially in India. And so we saw an underserved market. We saw an opportunity to do something within manufacturing horizontally. So as opposed to doing just steel or textile or aluminum or FMCG, something that can go horizontal, and our own expertise. We have mentors, friends, family who have worked in that sector and can guide us. And so some of these different sort of factors came into play for us to decide where we focus on. The key is to not say that, abhi humne manufacturing kar liya, that's it, we're going to stick here, but is to solve every sector case by case. So you start with manufacturing, you solve for it, you create a flywheel that then works independently like a well-oiled machine. Then you move into the next. Then you move into banking, finance, and insurance. Because again, when you jump from a sector to another, there'll be new problems, new sort of software competitors, new vertical integrations that you have to do. But once you've solved for one, it's very easy to focus and solve for the second. And so the plan for us with BHyve is to go sector wise and then sort of expand to have 5 or 6 or 8 different sectors that we service.
That's very interesting, and yeah, it's good to know that you will be focusing on other areas, yeah, as well. So, since it's been 3.5 years and you've reached this clarity, let's go back to the initial years and let's discuss what were the significant challenges that you faced in the initial stages of the business, and how did you and your co-founders overcome them?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some very obvious challenges that all startups face, right? What to do, who to speak with, where is sort of the early guidance, where is sort of the early budget that can come in. We were very fortunate where we had the right investors from day one to work with us. So some of those things, of course, are challenges. One of the big challenges we face, more specifically to BHyve, is that knowledge management is not a very common parlance, well-known software category. It is a
Yes.
common problem, but because it has not been solved for 2+ decades, there is no category of solutions. Today, if you go out in the market, you say HRMS, there are hundreds of softwares available. It's a category. Same if you go for ERPs or PLM products, then it's a category. So you clearly know what are your boundaries, what are your features, what are your competitors, what are your integrations. Whereas when you build in a sort of a new category creation, there are so many unknown unknowns. While some of it means that, oh, there are so many different possibilities, it also means there's a lot of figuring out you have to do, about what is your product stack, what is your tech stack at the back, how will that work in sector A, B, C, D, E. And so there was a lot of reading and legwork that we had to do right at the start. And that extends to how we do it with customers also. When we went to our initial customers, they were like, what are you talking about? What is knowledge management? Why is this important? So a lot of education we had to do, to explain to them how, it's almost like one of those invisible bleeds of every organization. And so there's a lot of education that needs to happen even with the early customers. So I think that is one of the big challenges we had right at the start. It's very easy to sort of associate knowledge management into a learning product or into an HR product when it is actually an ops product. So I think that was one of the early challenges. Hiring is perpetually a challenge. I don't think any company ever gets hiring 100% right. And so we've struggled with it back when we started. We struggle with it even today, getting good quality talent, at the right price point to come and stay and build and partner with you. So yeah, these are some of the early challenges. We've been fortunate, however, when it comes to support in terms of fundraising or support in terms of mentorship and partnership. So while I know there are so many startups out there that don't get to raise funds or that don't get to meet the right mentors, maybe because they're not connected or are not based out of tier one cities, we were very fortunate where we had that right from day one. So yeah, that's sort of, for me, the challenges are more inherent to the nature of a startup than to the ecosystem.
So, do you like? I understand you're a like behind all this co-founder and this positive talk. There's this person who is starting and has just is building her own baby, so to
Yeah.
say, right? So, how do you handle? Like, I understand obviously there are challenges. So, how do you handle this adversity and if there's doubt that creeps in? Like, how do you personally deal with that? And do you
Yeah.
feel, another question related to it, do you feel being a woman in this field is also, does it also pose a challenge?
Um, so I'll start with the first question. Adversity or pushback or meeting gatekeepers is very standard for all startups. And as the founder, you probably in a day get hit with this from multiple angles. You will have sales team come and tell you, okay, our customer ने ये बोल दिया है. You will have tech team come and tell you कि यार ये technologically possible नहीं है. This is a limitation we have. And so you're probably hearing more no's than yeses every day. So I think for me, one of the key things that has worked is, step one is reflect, and step two is reset. So how do you reflect on what has happened? What was sort of the decision making process that got you uh, to hear a no, and what could you have done differently? Something you reflect in terms of your learnings or corrective action, and that is more actionable. What needs to be done for founders is to reset, is to take that no, go to bed, and wake up again with a fresh start. Because you can have all the learnings ready with you, but if you don't have a mental reset, you're still going to be weighed down by the no you heard yesterday, to even try to make anything fresh happen today. And so while reflection helps you plan for the next day, reset puts you in the right mindset for the next day. So I think reflect and reset has been something that I try to do every night. Okay, we tried these 10 things, this didn't work, this was a mid success, what could we have done better? And take all your no's, take it like a bitter pill, go to bed, wake up in the morning with a fresh start. As far as the other question, how different or difficult it is being a woman founder. Like I said, I've been really fortunate where since day one, I've been um, part of programs, communities where women founders are not just encouraged but even supported in multiple different ways. Back in 2019, I worked with Bombay Stock Exchange's Women Founders Program. I've worked with Accenture, Google, Peak 15, Sequoia Capital. They've all had women founder programs which are specifically focused on helping us build an idea into a reality. And so I have been one of the most fortunate people in that sense to get all of this support right from day one. However, yes, there are other places outside of my experience where I know of stories of women who have not been able to fundraise or not been able to get the right outcomes from customers. There are times when I have faced it where, in spite of being the co-founder and CEO, I'll have a customer talk to my male co-founders and trust them on decision making instead of me. But that's more of mental models that need to be broken, and I think that'll take time. Um, One thing I found really effective, especially to be able to assert your um, sort of role and authority, is to go meet people in person. When you sort of present yourself as the ultimate decision maker or where the buck stops, then they start treating you like that. It of course adds more weight and responsibility on you, but then they perceive you the way you want to be perceived. So yeah, I think it's been very fortunate on the building side. uh, I've had some bad experiences on the customer side or third parties, externals, but mostly I've been lucky.
That's great to know, and I'm sure this is inspiring a lot of other, young girls and women out there who want to start something on their own, but there's always doubt that's creeping up. There's always people asking why, what,
Yeah,
and then there's always the onus of building something. I mean, and starting something never really is a. It's not believed to be a woman's thing, right? I know it shouldn't be that way, but it's
yeah.
just we're never taught to do something like that. It's just like, huh, you can join somebody who's doing that, but you don't do something like that. It's never there. So it's great to see that you've had a positive uh, approach and also positive support.
I do think things are changing, today, whether it is through the programs that I've been a part of or the communities I'm part of. I see so many women founders, actively go in for customer meetings, investor meetings, sales pitches, discovery, go and spend time with users in, remote locations. For us, we live in a sort of a bubble space because we work in the enterprise space. So at max, I will have to go to my customer's office, and which will be, in any tier one or tier two cities. But when you're working in, say, agri-tech, when you're working in healthcare, when you're working in finance, and you're working with like rural communities and something, there's a lot of physical travel, physical inputs that women have to do. But I see them doing today. Credit to them for doing it. Credit to their families and communities for supporting them to do it. So I do think that, at least in the last 5 years, we've seen tremendous change in how women are stepping up and finding support. But there's a long way to go. I think each of us, even podcasts like you guys help create that confidence and clarity and transparency that it is a difficult thing, but it's not an impossible thing to do, which is building your own startup.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's difficult for all, irrespective of the gender. And I had to ask the I didn't want to ask the gender
Yeah.
question, but I had to ask it because why not? If I don't ask it, a woman asking another woman, how is it going? Then who will, right? So,
No, and 100%. I think the fact that you're asking this question does two things. One, it builds a discussion around what are challenges that other women have faced. So while I've been fortunate, you may find two or three other women founders say, "Hey, I saw this as a challenge. This is a challenge," and that creates conversations. Two, I think it brings transparency for women who are sitting there and contemplating. When I started in 2019, there weren't podcasts featuring women founders. There weren't, programs that were, gaining, say, national highlight about women founders and their achievements or anything like that. So even if I may have had maybe a thing in my head that I want to do something, I had no role models. I had no access to people who would say, "Hey, I have done this. I know how to do this. Come to me." Today, when every woman founder steps out and does a podcast, an interview, gets featured somewhere, they're building visibility. And so if tomorrow, maybe because of this podcast, I get six pings on my LinkedIn, that'll only improve the ratios and improve the chances of these women succeeding. So I think it's important to have these conversations, and create visibility so that tomorrow people know कि अरे अगर मेरे को बात करना है, I know there's a Ketki out there, or there's anybody else out there I can speak with.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So let's go back to speaking about BHyve. So
Sure.
like it's been, like you said, 3.5 years. What has been the most satisfying moment in your business so far?
Um, I think when we hear from customers, that to me is like the biggest um, adrenaline hit. I've had instances where early on when the app was very new, it would crash, and I would personally get calls and emails from users saying, Kiki, why is BHyve not up? We want to be doing one, two, three things right now. And this would be at odd hours, 8 in the evening, 9 in the evening on Fridays and weekends. And so it was amazing to see that, okay, something that I built is such a critical part of a person's work, right? And so that's an incredibly powerful thing, especially when you have those lows. You want to wake up and think about that user who called you then to say that, Kiki, I need BHyve live right now for doing one, two, three things. We've had other times, when customers have said that people know about us and like, or have said that, we want to work for this organization because it has um, softwares like BHyve to help employees. So I think that's very powerful. If a client of ours is using us as an employer branding um, uh, a tool, or as an employer branding program, that to us is really good, because if we can help our customers not just become more efficient but also get good talent and be known in their industry for being an employee centric company, that is tremendous validation. So we've had that happen, where some customers said that we use BHyve when we go for hiring. We talk about BHyve when we talk to our potential talent. So I think some of these moments which help you build confidence in what you are doing is the absolute best. I think everything else aside, fundraise, or those things are immaterial. The customer being happy is true joy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And that is something that is common with, I think, all, I mean, not just startup founders, but anybody who has like a customer service like background where, I mean, if you hear something good or you hear some praise or some appreciation, it works out.
More than praise or appreciation, it is utility and value.
That
I
too, yeah.
just want to like I don't like reviews. I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like reviews, but um, uh, uh, a review that says, it's a nice software versus a review that says this software helped me do one, two, three things. I value the second one more, because it means we are actually creating value for the user. Of course, everybody's going to say it's nice to use and it is very pretty, or all of those things, but the inherent utility needs to come out. So I don't just want people championing good effort. I want them to say, hey, this helped me do one, two, three things. It helped me save 30 minutes of work. That is the key thing I look for when I look for customer feedback or compliments or such.
Okay. And when you made this switch from like a job, I think you moved from the US to India and you started BHyve here, right? So when you made this switch and decided to be an entrepreneur, do you what made you think that yes, I can be an entrepreneur? Because it comes, I mean, it's a cool word. When you hear it, when you spell it, when you say it out loud, it's a cool word, right? But like it comes with a lot of like a person needs to have a lot of skills to be an entrepreneur. So what do you think that what are the skills do you think an entrepreneur has, and what made you switch and be like, yeah, I can do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. I think the first thing was how, personally and deeply we felt the problem. How, we would have done anything to have something like BHyve in our organizations, the places we were working at. So that sort of drive to say that, hey, I'm going to solve this because I know there are hundreds of people like me who are struggling. So I think that is very important. If you don't feel like that, um, you're not feeling enough about the problem, then you're not going to be able to build. I think that was first. The second to me was the reassurance. I was very fortunate. This is again something that we as three co-founders constantly talk about, that we are very fortunate that we can take risks. When we started BHyve, we didn't have dependencies of loans or so on us. Our fathers and families supported us in saying, okay, take this risk, go without a salary for a year and a half till you figure out a business model. Was very helpful in us not being inhibited in our risk taking. Right, we didn't have to pay rent, we didn't have to worry about food on the table, we didn't have to worry about um, you know some other people not being able to do their own things. And so because we had that freedom, it compelled us to say that, yeah, there are so many people out there with great ideas, but they don't get to build on them because they don't have that ecosystem supporting them. We are fortunate where we have an ecosystem ready to fight for us. We should not let go of this opportunity. So for us, that really mattered in saying that our families will take care of us even if we're not earning, because we're building something that we care about. So I think the first was passion for the problem. The second is the risk that we were able to take because of the community or the family support. um, and the third was just patience, because there is a lot of expectation. When you look at these success stories, it's a switch you flip and everything just suddenly becomes rosy, but there is so much of work to do before you see that first success. um, so I think that perseverance is just really critical for anybody wanting to build a startup. And uh, perseverance on day one can mean different from perseverance in later stages, but there is an inherent need to constantly keep working at it.
Yeah, that's true. And besides these four qualities that you mentioned that has supported you, what do you feel is what advice would you give to somebody who's starting their own company?
Do it. Make sure you are supported. uh, I heard Indra Nui speak at an event, and she said this exact same thing, that I was able to take this huge responsibility of leading this company because I had a support system working with me. In her case, she had kids and a home, and she had her in-laws and parents manage all of that so she could focus on work. So if you are that fortunate person who has both an idea and a support system, 100% do it. There is always fear of failure, um, but you can go back to doing a job if nothing works out in 2 or 3 or 4 years. But if you're married by then, you then can't take the risk. If you have kids by then you can't take the risk. So find that sweet spot where you can take a risk and do it. And reach out to as many people. Make sure you're always talking about what you do, because then that's how you will unlock more doors. For us, we keep talking about BHyve in every conversation till we bore everybody's ear out. But that's how we were able to find our first customers, to find our first investors, to grow, meet the right people. So, yeah, that's, I think, uh, what I would suggest. But 100% do it.
Okay, yeah, that's great advice. Thank you so much for that. With this, I'll ask you my last question. Do you have a book or I mean, I know you've spoken a lot about importance of mentors and community, but do you also have like a book or a podcast or an event that made you realize that significantly influenced uh, your style, your work ethic, and your journey?
There's a lot, actually. I'm a huge fan of Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz, and so his books. I think one of his most significant moments in Starbucks history was what he's captured in this book called Onwards, and it talks about how a failing Starbucks culture and business was revived by doing some tremendous design changes in how leaders were working and how teams were working and what kind of support employees were provided. So I think that book was really helpful. A huge favorite read. Anytime, just open it and read it. Um, I love this book called The Mom Test. It basically talks about how, because your mom is your mom, she will say yes to everything, but that will be noise. And so being able to, it has like tremendous frameworks on how you differentiate between noise and insight. If you go to your mom, she's going to say yes to, you say, hey, I have this idea, I want to do this, and I think it'll be very valuable. She'll say yes, of course. But that's not because she's the right buyer for your product. It's because she's your mom.
Yeah.
And so how you are able to gauge every conversation and see, is this person just being nice to me, or is this person actually helping me? I think that book has excellent framework, so we make it like a thing everybody reads at BHyve. I think some of these books are tremendous. um, Mentors all the time. I'm a very shameless person that way. I reach out to like 20 people and say, hey, I need help with one, two, three things. I won't say there is one specific mentor as such, which is I think very difficult to just have one person who can solve all your problems. But I think it is the ability to reach out that matters. You have to be shameless and go and ask people saying, I need help. There's nothing wrong in admitting that, but once you do that, they also come with their own energy and expertise, um, uh, and then they're rooting for you. So I can't name one mentor, but I think everybody who has helped me, day in and day out, small things, big things, are. It takes a community, and this is the community that is helping us build BHyve.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ketaki. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for joining us at Maker's Bar. I hope you enjoyed as well.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for having me.
Okay. See you all next time.